There we go. Our recording is in progress. We are all set to begin. Um, hello. If you don't know me, my name is Elena Kawachi. I am the Vice President of Merrick's Tapestry and Beadlooms, and I am here with Claudia Chase, the President of Merrick's Tapestry and Beadlooms. Claudia started Merrick's Looms 29 years ago this month, actually. So that ages us.
Yeah,
Uh,
just to say
well,
that quickly.
except I was I was a kid, but um, trying to do the math in my head. Um, so today we are here to talk about our Kaleidoscope Wedge Weave Tapestry project. This is actually a project that we first launched a couple of years ago, um, and it was super popular then. Uh, and we we're thinking of relaunching one of our kits and giving away the tutorial for free. And we did a poll in our Facebook group asking people which project they were interested in doing a relaunch of. And the Wedge Weave Tapestry won by a mile. So there were a lot of people who really wanted um, to do this project, who maybe missed it the first time we did it, or who never got to do it and are interested in wedge weave. I understand why. It's a gorgeous product that this kit makes. It's also a fairly simple technique once you understand how it works. So kind of any level of weaver can make this, although there are a few basic things about tapestry that you do want to understand before embarking on this project. So this event today is something we've never done before. Um, it is a a meeting and a demonstration for us to talk about the project, to do a little bit of demoing of how to do the technique in this project. And also, it's for us to answer live some of your questions. We also have a list of questions that some people have sent beforehand. I realize that this is the middle of the day for a lot of people on a Wednesday. So many people probably are not able to attend, but so I think those were the people that sent in their questions beforehand, and then they will get their answers in the recording. Um, so this is not a weave along kind of live event. I mean, you can absolutely have your loom with you and work on this while you're listening and look at what Claudia is demonstrating when she gets to that part. But um, the purpose of it is not for us all to weave this piece together in an hour. As you probably know, if you are here, tapestry is a very slow art form, so it doesn't work very well in terms of, all working on something together in a short amount of time. Um, okay, so I think I kind of touched on what this event is, what we're going to be doing. One other thing I just wanted to bring up um, was um, that, as I kind of touched on before, it is our 29th birthday this month. So July, we are doing a lot of celebrating. This event is kind of the first of the celebrations. We also have a contest going on right now. If you go to our website, There is a banner. If you click on that, you can kind of see some of the things that are going on. The contest is to win a 16-inch Big Sister loom, which was our first kind of widely sold Merrick's loom. And we're going to have
Named after, she's the big sister.
the Big Sister.
She's
See,
the big, and she was 11 at the time, by the way, just so you know.
are we aging me here now? uh,
Telling you how old I was.
I am 40. Okay. So yeah, so contest. We're gonna have some wonderful sales coming up. We also have some $29 because 29 years um silk packages that are on the website.
Hey, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. Buy them. I painted them. I'm so proud of them.
Yes, those are hand painted silk made by Claudia herself. So if anybody has any questions, I see that somebody has raised their hand here. If you have any questions, put them in the webinar chat, and we will get to all of those questions as they
What
as
does it mean when someone raises their hand?
um there's it says they raise their hand. Probably a question or something like that, but we'll use the webinar chat since there are a lot of people on here. Okay, great. So I am going to bring it over to Claudia now. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, and then she is just going to talk about what wedge weave is. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, before I go over to you. So everybody here should have received in the first email when you signed up for this the Flying Start tutorial for this project. So there is a link to the PDF in that email. If you did not get it, you can email me and I will make sure that you have the link. That tutorial covers all of this in detail. So you don't need to remember everything that you hear today. All the details of being able to make and finish that project are in that PDF. So that's just important. You can reference back to that. And again, if you have any questions anytime while you're working on this project, you can email any of us and we will help you out. Okay, sorry. And now to Claudia to introduce herself and to talk a little bit about wedge weave.
Well, in about a month, no, more than 2 months, I will be 70. So now you all know. And I'm proud of it. Yes. Okay. Wedge weave. I had never done wedge weave until Elena informed me that we were going to do a weave along with wedge weave. So you better learn it, Claudia. And I did. I wouldn't consider myself the world's expert on it, but I love it. 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 What is wedge weave? Normally when you weave on the felt line, straight, straight across, or maybe you do eccentric wefts and you do little lumps or something like that. But with wedge weave, you actually weave on the diagonal like that. And you start your weave with a triangle, you weave a triangle, and then everything's like that. And it creates a very different look. It also pulls in and unpulls in the edges. In fact, I will show you an example of that, of this piece. So it's scalloped on the edges. I find it fascinating. I have two versions of that piece. I find it fascinating that some people pull in and push out a lot and other people not so much. I am not that happens. Maybe they're trying to avoid pulling and making those scalps. I personally love them. And little story about, we might talk about this later as well, but the Navajo Nation, it was developed in the Navajo Nation in 1870, and they did it for 30 years. Now, there are some Navajo weavers, I don't know who they are. You can look that up on the internet, who are still practicing it. They stopped practicing it because they were selling these rugs uh, to their customers who want straight edges. They were seeing the scallops as a mistake. So it went out of fashion after 30 years. That's pretty quickly. And now it seems to be back again. I think just about when we start, ladies, it's true, just when we started, when we did that weave along, it was either it was starting to become popular again, or we were on the wave, or it was just starting to come out as something people can do. So that has been very exciting. Um, so again, what it is you start with a triangle. You just weave triangle back and forth, reducing one warp at a time, and then you put diagonally all the way across. And I will demonstrate this in a little bit. That is basically all it is. You can do all sorts of complicated and wonderful things with it, and you're tapestry weavers. That's what you do. You take a technique and you get your own. I've seen so many gorgeous pieces where it starts with regular weaving, then becomes wedge weave, and then is regular weaving again. Just stunning, and I want to try all of it immediately. Okay. Anything else about that? No, that's basically what it is. I am going to now demonstrate for you. I'm going to turn my phone around, try to not mess this up. Let me see. Here we go.
This is
Oops.
the part that we've been practicing is her turning her phone on. Okay, we're not getting any audio.
Okay. Okay, cool.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Hey, I did it. Okay, can everybody, is that a good view, guys? Here we go. I love
Yeah.
all these new devices. So you can see here, I have woven a triangle. Not sure if this was the actual wedge weave instructions, but I started it at warp 14. I wove all the way across, and then I wove back to warp 13, wove across 12
I
until
just
I'm down.
I just want to
What?
interrupt just for one. I just want to interrupt for 1 second. Um, just to start off here. So you want to tell everybody what loom you're weaving on, and maybe talk about which looms that you can use to weave wedge weave.
This is why I need her. Okay, you're not going to be seeing me. You can see my hands. I am weaving this on a 8-inch Chloe loom. All right. Um, you can weave this on any Murex loom except the mini Murex. You need it to be your piece is going to be 5.5 inches wide, but if you have a slightly smaller loom, you can just make it 5 inches wide. It doesn't matter. You can weave it on a classic Murex loom, or you can weave it on a Chloe loom. If you're weaving it on the 5-inch Chloe loom, obviously it'll only be 5 inches wide. You can have warp ends showing on either end that you fold under, or in this case, I have started mine at the very beginning of the Chloe loom. And so this edge will be finished. I am not going to be weaving it all the way to the end because you see it's quite a distance, but I will end it with a header when I'm up here. I will end it with a header and it will fold it under. So each end will be finished differently. I could have started it here and started with a header and ended with a header, but I just decided to do this way because it's easier. What else did you want me to say, Lena?
That was about it.
Okay.
I wanted to set the
Okay.
scene, maybe talk about whether or not you're going to use a shedding device or not a shedding device.
Okay. Yes. So obviously in this one, I'm not using a shedding device, but I am using, and promotion, our beautiful brand new Murex shed sticks. They come in 3 different sizes and I'm madly in love with them. So one of my sheds is done with the shed stick. I don't even have to turn it up to be able to access the shed correctly. So
What's
that's
a
fun.
shed,
I'm also using, what?
what's a shed stick?
A shed stick is you put it under and over every other warp, in other words, in one of the sheds, and when you turn it, it creates a shed for you.
And
It
what's a
creates it's space between the lowered and raised threads. I feel like I'm taking an exam. I hope I pass it. Oh my God, after this many years, I should ace it, right? So that's what that's for. We had these designed for the Chloe looms, and I'm in love with them. Okay, so we've got that. I also want to show you another piece of equipment while I'm at it because I love new tools. We do have a new beater. It's made by Shack Loom, and it comes with two different options. This is the closer together tines, and it really is a magical piece. I've been waiting for this for decades. So they finally listened. They finally came. I think Rebecca Mezov convinced them to do it. She has more influence than I do over them, but I'm so excited about this. See, it works so well. All right, and am I ready to start my demo, Lay?
yes, yes.
Okay, good. Let's do that. I'll try not to knock things over or whatever. Okay, so I've already woven the triangle, and now I'm going to fill in, basically, I'm eventually going to fill in all the way across. But I'm going to start one warp over, and I want to, the other technique you need to understand with wedge weave is that you have to be in the correct shed. In other words, if you've woven over 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 warps, next you have to weave over 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, it's kind of hard to see this here, but the because it's on an angle and it's not as obvious as if it were straight. But I can tell, I don't know if you can see it, but the weft completely covers and goes around that warp. But in this case, it clearly goes under it slightly. So I know that I want to start going over this one, under this one, over this one, under this one, over this one. When you have your instructions, and it's very clear in the instructions and not as clear here, but I think you're going to get it. Now, from now on, it's going to be easy to see what the shed is because it's one straight line, whereas the triangle is not one straight line. Okay, so here we are. Here's our little wedge.
So to be clear, you start off by weaving a triangle just normally.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
then for your next section, you're actually weaving diagonally on top of that triangle.
Yes, and then everything becomes clear, especially your sheds. You can see them very clearly that here now I'm weaving under this one because it was over before. I'm using cyst of stick. So now I can just, that shed is always open. Okay. And so now I'm going to keep moving over. And I'm going to weave it always to the very edge here. Okay. Interesting the sounds this is making on my end. Okay, here we go. So you can see where we are increasing here, one warp at a time. Now, okay, this is an important thing to talk about. We're we're increasing one warp at a time for this wedge weave. You could do 2 warps and you would have a much steeper triangle and much steeper angles. But I am doing it at 1. Okay, here we go again. I can weave right through, right through. And now I wonder if we're going to start making a wedge. This should start pulling it in a little bit.
I have a question.
What?
When you're weaving wedge weave, is it easier to keep your selvages correct because you're not worrying
That's
about pulling in the same way?
I think so, and I think that was what I realized when I started weaving it, that it kind of okay, you have to do what you do with every regular tapestry weaving is don't ever try to pull in too much. I think it just naturally does it on its own. Okay, but distort things by going like that. That's it will I think it makes itself happen. Kind of smart, huh?
Yeah.
Now this should be, as I said, and it is, you can see where it's starting to pull in a little there, can't you?
Yeah.
And I am not pulling on that warp. I am not putting tension on it. See, here you can see the correct shed is the opposite shed. When you're using the shedding device, that is more obvious because you engage the shedding device and it creates a shed, whereas here we're picking it. But um, okay, so I'm going to weave one more back. I'm going to end it, and I'm going to start another one.
How did you make the decision to end that there?
I wanted to start a new one, but I don't. In the piece itself, I think you weave it a little more, but I just wanted to get onto another color to show you how to do it. So I was
Okay.
just
So,
being
so it
impatient.
doesn't necessarily matter. Just depends on your
Oh,
design.
look! It's starting to pull in. See, isn't that fun? I love it. I don't know. Something very magical about this. I don't know if I necessarily understand how all the magic happens, but it seems magical to me. All right,
That's what
so now I'm going to put it. What?
that's what makes it
What'd you say?
magical.
Right, because I don't understand why it works. But here we go. I'm going to start our new color. And once again, now it's very obvious. So I'm going to start going over that one. And you see it's very obvious what we're doing here. And the reason, obviously, that we're going all the way over to the edge is we're building up this section. Okay, so now I'm just going to stick this down here. Okay. Beat it, because I love my beater, so I like to use it a lot. Okay, see, isn't that fun? Okay, so let me talk about the sections of this piece. Okay, you can see it's almost like there's a line here. Okay, so I will finish this piece. It will end with a triangle shape. At some point when we start weaving these, at this point it's going to go all the way over to this edge, and then at this point with the blue, we're going to start. Okay, so at some point you want to decide the height of this. So at this point, I start decreasing here as well so that we could create like a rectangle here. To go on to the next piece, you weave another triangle and you do the same thing, but in the opposite directions. And that's what we've done for this whole piece. You can see my sections are different heights, just because that's part of the piece. It's in the instructions. So that's how that works. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's really neat to watch that done live there.
Um, okay, so
So why don't I, are you going to do a little more demonstrating or should
yeah,
we?
I'm gonna do a little more just so you see what's happening here. I wish we could get to the part where I actually start decreasing this part. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? Even though we're not ready to do that for this design, I am gonna start decreasing and show you how that works. So very simple. Just go to the second warp instead of the first one. And that's how you do a decrease. Very simple. See? And so then it will start to create a straight line here where it ends.
Hmm.
So shall we move on to questions?
Yeah, let's do some of the questions that we already got, and then we can move on to other questions. Somebody said that chat is disabled. If you are unable to type into the webinar chat, you can type into the Q&A chat if you have a question. So anybody can start typing questions into that now. I am going to ask just a few of the questions that we already had.
I'm going to go back to the other way. Okay.
Okay. Uh, the first one is which loom is best to weave this piece on? We already answered that, but so any Merrick's loom except for the mini Merrick's really works. I think
On
it's
the mini Merricks, you could do a mini on the mini Merricks if you wanted. So, but
um,
not this particular piece.
but I do think it's a different experience weaving wedge weave on a loom with and without a shedding device. And you could see that a little bit in your demonstration. Claudia, do you agree with me there?
Yeah,
Um,
but I think once you open the triangle, then everything makes sense. I think it's just doing the first line over the triangle that might be a little confusing. But if you look really carefully, you can see which what the shed is. But yeah, you're right. It's probably a little easier with a shading device.
um, okay, and obviously you can weave wedge weave on a different tapestry loom that's not a Merrick's loom. Um, how did you, I was thinking about this while you were weaving too. How did you choose the colors for this piece? And I would like to add on to that person's question. How do you choose as you're weaving it which colors go next to each other?
Well, the way we chose the colors was kind of a little silly. Okay, we had this spring. We had a purse kit, the Ellen purse kit, and the Martha table runner, and they each had 5 colors. And I love the 5 colors of each. And then we wanted to come up with this piece, so I said, we already have this wool there, and I love it. So we just bought 5. I just added 5 colors. That's all. Um, I chose the way the colors go based on what I thought looked good, and trying to have different values next to each other, different shades. I just loved all those 15 colors, and it's pretty easy to put them together and have them look good. So the answer to a question you haven't answered is you can put whatever color wherever you want. That's another thing with, and I think this is typical of our weave alongs. Yeah, we give you instructions on how to do it, but we encourage you to break off on your own and do your own crazy stuff. And we found that people do the most amazing things when they don't listen to us, when they go off on their own and do a different color or do a different shape. I'm always astonished by the stuff people come up with. So come up with something great. Send it to us. It's
And
always
also,
exciting.
you don't have to use our kit. A lot of people did order the kit, but you don't have to use our kit to make this piece.
Nope.
Um, so I'm excited to see as people start making this with their own colors that they've chosen, uh, how that looks because uh, color, I think, in wedge weave is really important.
It's well, in tapestry, very important. But yeah,
Yes.
you're right. You can weave this with anything. So that's the cool stuff. You can just go into your stash, and it's important to have your your weft be the same size. That's all.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you want to talk a little bit? Well, actually, I think this is in one of our other questions, so I'll pause that for now. Um, you sort of talked about this a little bit, but can you combine wedge weave with other techniques? I thought that was
Yeah,
really
yeah, and I have not done that yet, but as I was researching stuff for this webinar, I was finding pieces that were combination pieces, and they're gorgeous. So I want to try that next. That's on my bucket list to weave a combination. But yeah, you can just start off with regular weave, then go into wedge weave and regular weave. What will happen is where the wedge weave is, you're going to have the scalloped edges, and where it's not, you're going to have the straight edges. But I'm learning to love it, even though it's been banged into my head for 40 years that your edges have to be straight. Now they don't have to be anymore. I think when you purposely make them not straight, it's okay. It's when they're accidentally not straight because you made a mistake. That's when it's not okay. I think that's the rule.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna switch over to a few questions from people who are here live.
Mm.
Um, does the warp yarn come with the kit? Yes,
Yes.
it does. Um, if not, what should I use for warp? But maybe this is a good time to also talk about what warp is good for tapestry, what warp works.
Okay. So the warp we're using for this piece is my favorite, Sing Twine. This is black. Shows black. I weave with black often, but because if you're doing it on the Chloe and you have your edge showing, you will see black on the edges and not white, and that works better with the piece. So yeah, there's that and 15 colors of brown sheep worsted weight yarn, which brings us to the next question. And I don't really want to turn this around again, so I'm going to try to show you this way. Okay. And this is for those of you who are using your own stuff. Okay, so if you're using this is a 6/9, I think, which is a sort of medium weight warp. Now, how do I determine what weight weft do I use? Well, first of all, this is 8 ends per inch. I did it at 8 ends per inch because that works well with this yarn, which is a worsted weight yarn. Um, Mouths are very important in weaving. How do I determine that the set, the warp, and the weft are all correct? Well, there is this cool thing you can do. I hope you can see this. And that is you lay your weft in between the warp threads. And if it doesn't overfill the space, if it overfills the space, you know that your weft is possibly too thick. But if it fits well within the space between the two warp threads, you know that you have the correct weft. So trial and error, okay? Trial and error. You will mess up a bunch of times. Just keep practicing with the yarns you love and the warp you love. And for example, the brown sheep, you can use it 10 ends per inch. I think that's about as many warps you can do it at. Um,
Interrupt for 1 second for anybody here who doesn't know what set is. I don't think we really touched on that. So set is how far apart your warp threads are spaced. So when she refers to 8 or 10 EPI, which is ends per inch, you could also say DPI, which is dense per inch. That is how many warp threads are in an inch horizontally on the loom. So 8 dense per inch, the warp threads are further apart than 10 dense per inch. And with tapestry, as Claudia was saying, set is a little bit of trial and error because there are a lot of different factors involved. And one of the reasons buying a kit is nice, I think, when you're a beginner, is because you're told the set, you have the warp, and you have the weft. So it's kind of all set up for you, and you don't have to think about that piece.
Yeah, and another important thing, like let's say you're using just yarn for what's the tapestry yarn array for this. It's a very thin yarn. You would use 3 pieces of that combined together. So you can combine yarn to make it the right size. So let's say you set up your loom and you're like, oh my God, I had array yarn. It's really tiny in that space. Just double or triple it. See what works best.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, another question we have here um, that that I'm going to answer live. Okay. So it says, I can see how the first unit where you weave wedges from left to right. How do you begin the second unit where the wedges are in the opposite direction? Do you weave it from right to left? Before you answer, I just want to say that so we do refer back to the PDF. We have very detailed instructions on exactly how this is done, but I will also let Claudia answer this live.
Great question. It really is a great question. Yes, what you thought is true. Actually, this is opposite of what it really is in real life. But so this actually started on the left, but let's pretend it didn't. Yes, so this goes that direction, and then this goes that direction, just like you thought. So each one
Which is
sat.
because that's not typically how you would.
No, it isn't, and I think that's what helps. I think that may be what helps make the wedge here so defined. I'm
Mm,
not sure.
yeah, that's
This is a question for you guys. How do these wedges happen and why? And how wedged are you? I'd love to. I'm looking forward to seeing your pieces. This is an experiment. I want to see who gets the biggest wedges, who gets this. Maybe we should give an award for the biggest wedges. What do you think? Yeah, I want to see what happens when you do it. It's kind of fun.
Okay, one other live question we have here. How long will the kit be on sale? We will probably keep it on sale for another week or so. I think technically today was going to be the last day, but I have been hearing from some people who want to order, and we keep selling out.
We sold out 5 times. Well, you never know.
We've
You
sold
never
out.
know. But obviously, this is a popular kit, and people want to do it. But we just ordered a bunch of yarn. We have to process it, put it on cards, do all that. So yeah, we'll give you another week,
Yeah,
right?
we'll keep it on sale a little bit longer.
Cool.
Um, Another good question. Okay, I'm gonna hop back to some of our other questions that we had. Um, and again, we talked about this a little bit. How much experience tapestry weaving do you need to do this project?
Okay, that's another good question, and the answer is like with all our kits and all our weave alongs and all our flying start videos, you can be a beginner. Is that true, Lenny? It's almost every one of ours is
Yeah,
beginner level. You can be an intermediate too, because you'll be if you're learning a new technique or a new design or whatever. But this is pretty easy, and I think the fact that your selvages don't have to be straight, your edges don't have to be straight, makes it that much easier. Because the having not straight selvages is often something that really bothers people. So in this one, you can kind of go crazy. No, it's a beginner piece. You can learn how to weave tapestry starting with this piece and then move on to other techniques.
yeah. And I think with all learning of tapestry, the first thing that you need to learn is how the wefts move in relationship to each other when you have multiple wefts on the loom. Um, so learning weaving in opposite directions or meet and separate where you have multiple wefts that move into each other's territories is, I think, a really important foundational skill.
The most important
And
foundational skill.
that's something that if you understand that before starting this piece, if you've worked with multiple wefts in tapestry, I think that will really help you. But you don't necessarily need to have done other projects because, especially because the instructions are very clear in exactly what you need to do. So you're kind
Yeah.
of learning that as you go.
And the difference between learning how to use standard tapestry technique, which is weaving in opposite directions. You let's say you are starting 5 different wefts. They all travel in opposite directions, so they are in the correct shed relative to one another. You don't have to think about this with this piece because you're only weaving one weft at a time, and it just has to be in relationship to the previous one. So in fact, this is probably an easier piece to weave than most beginner pieces because of that. You're not dealing with multiple wefts,
Yeah,
which can get complicated. But I think you're going to learn the whole concept of weaving in opposite directions, correct shed, etc., from doing this piece.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's
yeah, it's a great beginner piece. In other words,
Yeah, this is something that I've thought about a lot. What is the perfect piece for beginners where they're learning those foundational skills, but it's easy enough to not be frustrated. And I think this is probably a pretty good place to start, because there really is a lot of learning um, that happens while you are figuring out wedge weave. Um, and also, it seems to me that there you can you can make more mistakes in terms of like we were talking about, like pulling in the edges, and
Yeah, that one. That's the biggie.
there's
So
there's some leeway there. Uh, I think I just answered this actually. What other techniques do you need to be comfortable with when starting wedge weave?
yeah, we did that.
So, the relationship of the wefts. This is a good one. What contemporary tapestry weavers use wedge weave in their work? You may have
Okay.
touched.
I looked that up because I actually I knew one, and I'm going to speak at length about that. There was a blog post. I think this is by Rebecca Mezoff, and apparently there are two Navajo weavers who are practicing this: Kevin Aspas and Venancio Aragon, and those are Navajo weavers. But in the other community of other weavers, contemporary weavers, Connie Lippert, Janet Gross, Ruth Manning. But I'm going to show you examples of one of my favorite weavers. And yes, she used a Murex sometimes. Sylvia Hayden. Now, she does not call her, it's not, her work is not called wedge weave, but it is, I think. She weaves on all her work on the side. And as you can see here, so she's going to weave it like this. And I'm going to show you a piece, an internal piece that was probably a better example of that. Okay. See that? She's got a bunch of wedges going there. Incredible stuff.
That is
Um, there's another picture I want to show you. Oh, and then I wanted to show you the example that she had done a drawing in her book. This is her book. And you see how her wefts are all on a diagonal, pretty much, except for some of the beginning ones. So I would call her a wedgewood weaver, which wedge weave, wedge weave weaver. Say that 3 times. Say that, can't say that. So check out her work and the other people's work to see what amazing things they're doing with this technique.
Okay, next. I'm not sure if we touched on this, but how do you change the height of your sections in wedge weave?
Well, that would be when you decide to decrease. At some point, you're gonna just go to the edges, and at some point you're gonna start decreasing. So you're gonna go 1 over 1 over 1 over on this one, and that will determine the height. See, there's a line that's created there. So when you decide to decrease on the other end, okay, so you're increasing on one end, but now you're starting to decrease on this end. And how many warps you go over. So we're going over 1 warp at a time. You can do 2. That would make it much higher. So this is how you determine it when you start decreasing.
Where you start.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So we have some questions that were more general Murex questions that I did want to answer that people had asked. But again, anybody who wants to put some questions in the Q&A, we can answer that anytime. So here are the questions that I had. This one is actually something that we had already talked about. How do you choose how far apart your warp threads should be? That's set. That's what we talked about previously. Um, okay, this is a good one. Why is warp tension so important for tapestry weaving?
Take it away.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you know.
Um, well, I mean, no, I want you to answer that.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'm a real stickler on this, and this is why I created the Murex loom in the first place, because I couldn't find a portable loom with good enough tension. And even though I'd gotten fairly skilled at weaving at the time, and I was able to have pretty straight edges, I wanted more tension. I wanted tension on a portable loom like I had on my big floor looms. Why? When your tension is correct, you pull in less. Your warps even your internal warp. I mean, think about it. It's not just your warps on the selvages that you're worried about. You're worried about your internal warps. They should not pull into each other. They should always be parallel. And when they do, and if you have a lot of really good tension, that helps tremendously in keeping everything parallel. What happens when your warps are not parallel? And not even talking about the selvages, which are obvious. There is a tendency, if you're not, and we're not doing this in this people, if you're not bubbling, which is the technique that you use for regular weaving. If you're not weaving correctly, your warps will tend to separate on the edges and get closer together in the middle. And that is not good. And that is really hard to fix. I know I've tried. I've tried. So you want to avoid that. And one of the best ways to avoid any distortion of your warps is to have a lot of tension.
And
That
and I guess this is when you asked me to answer this, I was like, I'm not quite, I know you do need tension, but I'm not sure the reason why. And I guess what it comes down to is because tapestry is weft faced, so that means you are only seeing the wefts, not the warps. That's why specifically tapestry, you need very, very, tight, good tension on your warps because
right.
it's not going to be evenly woven.
Yeah, and it's really disturbing when it's not. And I have studied endlessly ways to fix it when your warps are starting to get disturbed. Another thing about tapestry weaving, with the other techniques, not so much with this, you have little sections at a time. And so those little sections have their own selvage threads, right? So it's not just the outside. So if you're weaving internally over 5 warps, 2 of them are selvage warps, and you can accidentally pull them in and distort them.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of mistakes if your tension is not good. Trust me, I've done them all.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a little advertising, but one of the really nice things about Americ's Loom is that you can adjust your tension as you're weaving. So you don't have to make sure as you're warping that your tension is super, super tight. And also,
Well, it can't be. It can't be when you're warping. It has to be even, not tight.
right, but if you're warping a frame loom or something, you do have to make sure your tension is as tight as possible as you're warping because
Because you can't change it.
you can't change. I mean, there are little hacky ways too, but you can't really change it. But also, as you're weaving, as I weave at least, I adjust my tension. I say, I want to tighten it up a little bit. It seems a little bit loose, or maybe I want to loosen it up a little bit. There are a lot of times throughout a tapestry that I might
I
want.
never loosen it up.
Well, what if you do advance your
That's
weaving?
another question I get all the time, and I have my answer, but I don't know what the right answer is. There are people who loosen the tension on their tapestry in between weaving. I do not know why. If someone wants to answer that question, I'd be happy. I should obviously look it up, but I don't see the point because you're under a certain amount of tension. You've stretched your warp slightly because, yeah, guess what? When you put your warps under tension, you are going to stretch them unless they're linen or hemp. Let me get into that. So linen and wool are stretchy. Wool is much stretchier. So when you will distort your warps slightly. They will get slightly longer as you put more tension on them. And no, they will. And yes, when you take your piece off the loom, they will shrink back slightly, which is why when you take your piece off the loom, you want it to rest for a little bit so the warps can shrink back. They will not shrink back completely though. But with linen and hemp, there's almost no stretch. They have almost no give, which makes them difficult to work with, better on a Merrick's loom because of the continuous warp. Impossible on looms where you have to tie off, not impossible, more difficult on looms where you tie off each section because there's no give. So either you're with linen, either you're tight or you're baggy. There's not really anything in between, kind of like wire, really annoying. But the finished piece of a linen piece is one of the nicer. It's very stiff and it's a very nice It's a very nice warp, pretty much when you're done using it, not when you're weaving
Hard to work.
it. But I still love linen and hemp, but oh well.
Okay,
I will
so
suffer.
we have another live question here. In the center of the sample tapestry that you were holding up, you have woven a black weft along the width of the tapestry between the wedge units.
Yeah, I did. Because I thought it looked nice. I just that was just part of the design. I liked it. I did it. It's
So,
kind
I
of
mean,
cool.
that's an example of combining wedge weave with,
Yeah, exactly. And there's no black line here. There's a black line here, black line here. Yeah, that was just for fun.
yeah, it would be interesting to weave this piece with more, with something in between each wedge.
Right. And I actually want to show you a picture of, I think this is on, again, Rebecca Mezov's blog, but this is a piece. You see the top and bottom are regular weave, and the inside is wedge weave. You can tell because of the lumps. Isn't that gorgeous though? I really like that piece. But
Yeah.
for example.
Okay, and then I have another question here. Okay, this is another general question, but it's a really good one. Why choose a loom with a shedding device over a loom without a shedding device like the Chloe loom?
Well, they
For this piece
I
and just in general.
yeah. Okay. I've been using the Chloe loom a lot lately. Especially now that we have combs that are not just that's another wonderful, with the classic Merrick's, you can get springs going from 8 to 22 dents. With the Chloe loom, what's our finest dent? 18?
Four.
What?
Uh, I said four. We have four end sprint warp coils for the regular looms.
Oh, okay, right. I forgot about it.
Yeah,
What
I
does
think
Chloe go to? Chloe is 8 to
eight.
what's the finest set? 18. And so I've been using it a lot just because I wanted to get to know it. Chloe loom is a more intimate loom. You can sort of put it half in your lap or completely in your lap, leaning on a table, in bed. It's just and a smaller Chloe loom with a shorter rod, because you can change the rods to make it different lengths. You can throw it in your purse. So I've been really into the intimacy of that. Um, but it's easier to weave with a shedding device, it generally speaking, okay, because it's faster. Because you change your shed with the shed stick, you get one shed always open, so that's cool. I mean, but the other one you have to hand pick, and it just makes it takes longer. But tapestry takes forever anyway. So um, I love the process of weaving tapestries more than I love the process of finishing them. I don't care if it takes forever. I want it to,
Yeah.
sort of.
I find I have a hard time if I've been weaving with the shedding device, if I'm weaving a piece with a shedding device, and then I weave a piece without the shedding device, and there's this adjustment period where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is taking so long.
Yeah, it is.
Why am I
It
not
is.
weaving?
But did you ever notice that when you are using the shedding device, when you're only weaving a tiny section, a tiny shape, that you just hand pick it anyway? Because it takes more effort to go than to just stay there and do it. I mean, you really have to, when you're weaving, look at where your hands are going and where they're moving and how far away from you they're moving, and then determine what is the easiest way to weave, whether change the shed or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So it depends on the piece that you're weaving too.
And shedding device is great when you're weaving from selvage to selvage, which you almost never do. But or weaving longer. It's I don't know. I love them both. You know.
All right, well, that is the end of the list of questions that I have. If anybody else has any questions, you can put them in the Q&A now. And we are also happy to answer questions via email after this is over. But if not, look at us on time, which is
Oh, aren't we good?
I have to go pick up my daughter from dance camp, which is why this is in the middle of the day because I have two young kids and it's hard to schedule anything.
Oh, if only you lived in Europe, your timing would be better.
Well, it's yeah, it's good for people in different time zones. But thank you everyone for coming. And for everybody who is in the future going to watch this. Um, if again anybody did not find the PDF instructions, you can email me and I'll make sure you get that. I am super excited to see your wedge weave pieces.
Yeah, that's another thing. Please, please. I mean, post them on social media and stuff, but post them on our Facebook page, our group. You know what, Lane? I'd love to see us just make a piece with all of the pieces together. Put them all together to see what everybody's done.
Yeah.
Because I think this one's going to be really,
And
really
you can
exciting.
also, if you're not on social media, you can email us pictures too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
we, and I'm not just saying this, I think our favorite thing is getting pictures of pieces that people have made on our looms.
My favorite, personal favorite thing is anytime I design a weave along or a flying skirt class, I love to see how people don't follow what I say and do their own thing. And I think it looks better sometimes. I love to see how
Yeah,
people branch out and just do their own thing completely because I learn from it.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. It's really, even when somebody's using the same kit and making a very,
Oh, it's amazing what they can do that's
and
different from.
everything is totally different. Yeah, that's really fun. All right. Well, Claudia, thank you so much for all the work that you put into this. This was great.
Me learning how to flip my phone.
That's been the
I
most.
spent an hour practicing that, guys. Okay, an hour.
Uh, and also, if via email you want to tell us if this kind of thing is something you would like us to do again, sort of fairly informal um, Zoom webinar events where we talk about different projects or different techniques or anything like that. If you do, we will continue our Zoom membership. Right now,
Just
I have on my
do it.
calendar cancel Zoom after July 2nd. Um, but I think this is a really fun way to get our community together in a live way. So it would be neat if this is something that, maybe we could do once a month with a different topic, or something like that.
We
Uh,
might even do it later in the afternoon. You never know.
yeah, or on a weekend. I can just do it with children running around in the background. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Claudia. Oh, wait. We have two more. Oh, that
Oh,
was
good.
no,
Questions?
no, thank you, and that was great. But thank you. Um,
Thank you.
thank all of you. We really appreciate everybody spending your Wednesday with us. Okay,
Well, Merrick's does have the best customers in the world, and I'm not just saying that. It's been proven again and again. Always the best.
that's true. That's why we are 29 years old because of our customers. And
Yeah. Over 29 years old. I'm not. I'm 70. Oh, okay. Merrick's.
you're 29. So my grandmother told me she was 29 her entire life, and I never knew how old she actually was until she died.
Well,
I
she also
could have
got
done the
really
math.
sick one time in the hospital and she told them her real age, which was 10 years older than what I thought it was. So we've got a thing about age in our family, I guess. That's why I tell everybody how old I actually am.
All right. Oh, wait, some more. Oh, yay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So people are saying we should do this kind of thing again, which I think would be really fun. And maybe I'll keep
Wonderful.
this membership. We'll see.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks, Elena. Bye.